The National Museum of Alexandria. The National Museum of Alexandria was at first a palace that belonged to a man called Asad Pasha Vasili, a wood seller. It was next sold to the American consulate, then to the Supreme Council for Antiquities. The palace was inaugurated in 2003 for the purpose of presenting the different eras in Egypt. The museum mainly focuses on three collections: ancient Egyptian, the Coptic, and the Muslim world. The museum also includes works from the Hellenistic period. King Menkaura. This statue is a royal statue. Royal statues have specific characteristics that depend on the period during which they were constructed. These characteristics include the royal costume that is found in all periods except the royal beards that we find in some statues and in others we don't. The royal costume consists of the headdress or the nemes, the false beard, the skirt, and the uraeus, that is a cobra worn on the forehead that is a symbol of protection in the underworld. There was a wide variety in the materials used for statuary. Statues for the high class were made of basalt, granite, or marble. Statues for the middle class were made of colored limestone, and for the lower class they were made of wood. Every detail in this statue has its significance. For example, the hand grip indicates power and control. The stretched hand indicates mercy and justice. King statues constructed in this position belonged to the Old Kingdom. The purpose of these statues was serving the belief of resurrection and immortality. They were meant to be the method by which the body would recognize the soul in the other world. This is why the ancient Egyptians showed huge interest in building pyramids and cemeteries more than homes. The ancient Egyptians built wooden statues using the sycamore tree. In statues of males, we'll find them extending their left leg that is connected to their heart, and that indicates that they are going to the afterlife willingly. However, if they are pictured next to a god, they must keep their knees together. This is a statue of an employee in the state, which we can see through his costume. The symbolic table. It is not made for the purpose of eating, but to serve the dead in the afterlife. All symbols on this table represent bread, milk, and honey. The ancient Egyptian believed in the power of words. He had a belief that a word can be turned into reality, so he believed these symbols. This is an example of a family. A married man had to have a statue of his family to put it in the entrance of his cemetery, to show that this is where his family will be buried. The position of the wife's hand, resting on the husband's shoulder, shows her approval to be buried next to her husband. If their kids are under 14 years old, in the pre-puberty stage, they will be pictured in a small size. The kids have braids because they didn't cut children's hair before they got 14, whether it's a girl or a boy. Boys had the same skin color as their fathers, brown. Brown symbolizes hard work in agriculture. Women had light skin color because they used to help their husband in household chores. Statues of servants. They had the purpose of presenting the daily jobs they had. The sculptor didn't care as much for the colors and the figure as for representing the job itself. These statues were put in the cemetery so these servants stay with their master even in the afterlife, and when they die, they would choose to be buried next to their master's cemetery. When we first see these statues, we notice that the chins don't resemble the typical Egyptian chin. These heads are Asian heads, made to be used as a doorstep for the king to step on as a symbol of the submission of other nations to the current pharaonic king. After the end of the era of the Old Kingdom, famine and loose security took place. That was the result of negligence of the kings for agriculture and economic achievements, and the care for architectural achievements like pyramids and temples. Thus, in the next kingdom, they showed more interest in agriculture development. And this is why we don't find much pyramids in the Middle Kingdom. Unfortunately, kings in the Middle Kingdom neglected military achievements, and therefore Egypt was conquered by the Hyksos for approximately 150 years. We notice some differences between the statues of the Middle Kingdom and those of the Old Kingdom. For example, the hands. Both hands are stretched, which means that the king is starting to lose control of the state. The facial expressions. Kings in the Old Kingdom had a slight smile. In the Middle Kingdom, kings are frowning and have dark circles under their eyes. The sculptor wanted indeed to show the people how exhausted their king was. In the New Kingdom, kings learned from the mistakes of their ancestors, and they showed interest in the development of all aspects of the state: agriculture, economic, and architectural. This is the statue of one of the most popular queens, Queen Hatshepsut. She was portrayed in the form of a man with the royal crown for males and the false beard. Even her names were male names. She was even called King Hatshepsut. Queen Hatshepsut did this because the Egyptians weren't accustomed to the idea of a female ruling the state instead of a male king. King Akhenaten. He was different from the kings who came before and after him. He started several revolutions: artistic, political, and religious. His first revolution was the religious revolution. There were many gods at that time. In fact, every province had a different god. He wanted to unify the religion because these gods had more power than the king himself. His second revolution was the artistic revolution. The methods of embalming or treating the dead body that the ancient Egyptians used is called mummification. Using special processes, the Egyptians removed all moisture from the body, leaving only a dried form that would not easily decay. It was important in their religion to preserve the dead body in as lifelike figure as possible. In ancient Egypt, when someone died, they would make a longitudinal slot next to his heart to remove from the body the intestines, the heart, the lungs, the liver, and other organs. These organs were placed in special boxes or jars called canopic jars. These were buried with the mummy. They would also place with the mummy items he used in his daily life, like eating and drinking utensils and jewelry. The average ancient Egyptian was 165 centimeters.
The history of Alexandria dates back to the city's founding by Alexander the Great in 331 BC, yet before that there were some big port cities just east of Alexandria at the western edge of what is now Aboukir Bay. The Canopic branch of the Nile Delta still existed at that time and was widely used for shipping. After its foundation, Alexandria became the seat of the Ptolemaic kingdom and quickly grew to be one of the greatest cities of the Hellenistic world. Only Rome, which gained control of Egypt in 30 BC, eclipsed Alexandria in size and wealth. The city fell to the Arabs in AD 641 and the new capital of Egypt, Fustat, was founded on the Nile. After Alexandria's status as the country's capital ended, it fell into a long decline, which by the late Ottoman period had seen it reduced to little more than a small fishing village. The current city is the Republic of Egypt's leading port, a commercial tourism and transportation center, and the heart of a major industrial area where refined petroleum, asphalt, paper, plastics are produced. Alexandria under the Roman rule. Egypt remained as the only state in the Mediterranean basin independent from Roman domination up to the border of Actium in the year 31 BC. Egypt became a Roman colony since 30 BC, while Alexandria became no more the capital of Egypt, but just the first city of the new colony, and was called at that time Alexandria ad Aegyptium. Augustus the emperor retained the pre-existing division of the country of Egypt into some 30 administrative districts, or nomes, each governed to be as strategos, but within that unshaded framework he effected a radical change in the power structure. Let us now view what befell the organization of the city of Alexandria during the New Roman period. The New Roman period, Augustus was very firm in abolishing the bull of the Alexandrians. Therefore, the Alexandrians looked upon this act as a thrust to their pride, weakening the entity of Alexandria as a self-governing polis. They have regarded this deed as a symbol of the loss of their independence and the start of their subordination to Rome. Greek art in Alexandria. Alexandria was a fertile soil for art due to the encouragement and high esteem for art. The Ptolemies opened their arms wide to embrace the artists of the region of Africa due to the strong relationship between this region and Egypt. Those artists found in Alexandria a welcome space to practice their art, which satisfied their hobby. However, the Greek artists arriving from Greece to Alexandria and Egypt missed marble since it was important for a great value, This presented an additional reason for the artists of Alexandria to direct their production towards the sculpture of small-sized statues of marble. An example of this is the group statue of Aphrodite in the Museum of Alexandria. Since using colors was a necessity for the art of pharaonic sculpture, this custom was transferred to the Alexandria sculpture, and colors was used even on marble. This can be seen on the child's hat found in the Museum of Faculty of Arts of Alexandria and in many of the statues of Tanagra collection in the Museum of Alexandria. The name Tanagra has come to be synonymous with one of the countless types of Greek terracotta. The elegant trapped female figure produced in vast quantities throughout the ancient Greek world between about 330 BC. But Tanagra is also the name of the ancient city where many of them were made and found. The site lies about 20 kilometers east of the seaboard and 5 kilometers south of the modern town of Chimistra in central Greece. Yet, the Alexandrian artists alone from the artists of the Hellenistic age had used the hard Egyptian rocks as basalt and granite with different colors in making some of his statues or building in the Greco-Roman style, a fact which was not found in any other Hellenistic school. Besides this, Alexandrian artists used different kinds of metals and precious stones for making statues or making relief ornaments. In the Museum of Alexandria, we have a statue made of silver representing the naked goddess Aphrodite. There are also statues of ivory and gold of the father and mother of Ptolemy Philadelphus. As for the story, it was clearly seen that the school of Alexandria was affected by the Greek arts of the 4th century of BC. Besides imitating sculpture of the 4th century BC in Greece, we found that the school of Alexandria is distinguished from the school of the Hellenistic age by the mixture of the two styles, Greek and Pharaonic. The visual art reflects the combination of old and new that is a distinctive feature of the Hellenistic age. Classical artists had perfected a limited number of artistic genres or types such as the idealized figure of an emotional, youthful nude male. The styles of figure continued to be sculpted as heroic representation of Hellenistic kings. The production of small terracotta figures began in the 4th century and flourished in the Hellenistic period. The small made figures were relatively inexpensive and popular throughout the Greek world. In view of the above, we can note the scope of artistic development acquired by the School of Alexandria during the Greco-Roman periods, as well as the extent of its effect upon the enduring Hellenistic age and other successive ages.
There was many factors that helped the spread of Christianity in Alexandria and in Egypt. One of these, that Egypt was the first nation to believe in monotheism since the age of Akhenaton. Secondly, that was Egyptians were known of their beliefs in life after death and the accountability for one's action and retribution on the other life or afterlife. Thirdly, the Egyptian symbol of life Ankh was similar to the Christian cross. Furthermore, Egyptians perhaps found in the new religion a new opportunity to express their opposition to Roman authority after Egypt lost its independence and became a province of Rome. In 64 AD, the Emperor Nero forbade the adoption of Christianity for the citizens of the empire. Whoever disobeyed that was subject to punishment. Persecution acquired once again in the end of the 1st century, in 98 during the era of Target, and some bishops in Egypt and Alexandria were killed and Christians were tortured like the rest of the world. In the 3rd century, persecution increased until they reached their peak, as Christians faced torture and death. At the time of Emperor Dacius, Christians were sent all over Egypt to Alexandria to be suffered, and many of them suffered a various type of torture. In 260, Christians can't pray, they can't even be who they are, so they hide in tunnels so they can pray and not be killed or punished. At the beginning of the 4th century, the beginning of the largest persecution movement against Christians. Christians were deprived from holding any administrative position, and their card books were burned, and their church were demolished. And all of this was followed by physical punishment, such as destroying hearing abilities, cutting noses. Then followed a wave of killing and torture in 304 AD. There were many churches in Alexandria. Church was not only for learning, but only for praying, teaching, and do everything. Actually, in the end of the Christians developed in a lot of domains. For example, in the street, Christian Alexandria know paper, glasses, textile, and cheap industries. In the end, Christians have suffered a lot before they became what they are. Important part of the developing of Alexandria, important part of histories. They believed in what they want and they became an important part in Alexandria. During the period of Islam, Europeans filled the city, held important posts, and lived mostly in the area of Midan al-Manshiyah. The French sculptor Jacquemont made a bronze statue of Muhammad Ali. He planned the street and he constructed with Lebanon. For the establishment of Alexandria Electric Company, wastewater pipes were constructed underground and the mail service came into being. A network of rails connect Alexandria in many parts of Egypt and telegraphic service were installed. Positive results were evident regarding the commercial movement between Alexandria and other countries. It was evident that foreigners present a big community in the city during the last quarter of the 19th century, more than any other Egyptian city. This is how Alexandria started to grow and expand. Waste disappeared, construction was abandoned, and life reigned once more in its fate. The number of inhabitants increased, rural labor migrated to live in the glowing city, economy flourished, schools were built, and journalism emigrated. There was a big development in Alexandria, lot of architecture, Islamic architecture, that was really fascinating. People come from all around the world to see it until now. Alexandria had become who she is after the Islam entered. Islam has developed in architecture, and we can see this in Alexandria in City Gaber and Mursi Abul Abbas Mosque. They were landmark of Alexandria. They showed the old life of Alexandria. People come from all around the world to see these architectures. Alexandria have developed more and more in Islam, and until now people come from all around the world to see this development.